Underwriting deals is such a major pain point for people. Most don't want to do it, and the people that are good at it are few and far between. That is why after 6 years of being in the industry and buying over 1,200 apartments, using my best-selling multifamily deal analyzer, I created Real Estate Lab, a full suite acquisition software for multifamily investors. We have built a product that helps investors automate their acquisitions and close more deals, all in a cloud-based platform. You can go to realestatelab.com and sign up today using the promo code TAG2 for 10% off your first 12 months. This is David Tupin. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Apartment Guys, where we dive deep into all things multifamily investing. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and empower real estate investors to reach their highest potential. Each week, host Tate Seamer interviews high-level guests from all over the industry who are sure to bring valuable, actionable ideas that will propel your career to the next level. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, you are in the right place. And now your host, the Apartment Guy, Tate Seamer.
Welcome everybody back. Another episode of the Apartment Guys. Chelsea, you've been so gracious as to join me on this adventure on the podcast here in the last few months. And for me, I just want to say that this podcast has been like just a joy for me to produce. Getting to spend time with high-level people in a high-level conversation where everybody's trying to present value to listeners and everybody's like presenting at their very best. Like, it is an honor to get to spend time with those people, and it's a joy. Like, I honestly, when I started the podcast, I did not anticipate loving it as much as I do. Hopefully that comes across in our conversations and my level of passion for both the industry and for educating people about the industry and sharing as much value as we possibly can here on the show. And I'm really psyched about the next 100 episodes. It's awesome to be doing 2 a week now, which is what we're up to. And we mentioned on one of the last episodes that there is going to be a name and brand change, and we probably should do it. The show will be the same format as it's been, and a lot of the same content and same types of guests. But we're going to be calling it the Apartment Gurus, which is non-gender specific in this case, and as opposed to the Apartment Guys, because, well, we've got Chelsea on the line, and it's super exciting to me to see this evolve and grow and get to partner with you, Chelsea.
Yeah, thanks, Tate, for having me. And I've watched you over the last almost 2 years. I don't know how long exactly it's been, and you've poured your heart and soul into the podcast, The Apartment Guys, and people we meet all over conferences or we don't even know come up to us and are like, oh my gosh, you're Tate from the Apartment Guys. So it's been awesome to watch that. And I'm a huge fan, as you know. I've listened to every episode, and I'm not just biased because I'm your partner, but I truly believe you have some of the best guests on in the industry, and that's who people want to hear from. So keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate that. And it's like I said, it's a thrill and a joy to have you on board, and I think that the listeners will really benefit from your perspective, because I benefit a lot from your perspective every day in our operations and acquisitions and everything else. So Chelsea's a smart cookie, and she's very well seasoned and educated in this space, and really has a ton of value to offer. So today we're going to be talking about underwriting, and this is going to be a series that we'll do. We're going to cover some of the different important items in underwriting, and basically, the importance of underwriting cannot be overstated. It's crucial that you get certain pieces of this right. Otherwise, you're going to be prone to possibly make big mistakes, write offers that are too high, or just not not informed enough for you to make a good decision. So the underwriting piece is massive. If you're just starting out, my recommendation would be get help, get mentorship, get coaching. And there are underwriters out there. That's all they do is underwrite deals. You can certainly utilize those people. Like Upwork would have professionals that can underwrite deals. And that might be a really good way to go on your first few underwritings, because they're gonna bring a perspective and an experience level that you don't have. So that said, it's super important for you to learn how to do it yourself, and it's a progression. Chelsea and I underwrite our deals together at Greenlight, and it's really good to have two pairs of eyes on the spreadsheet because there's a lot of moving parts, and some of these moving parts will either make a deal or break a deal. So I want to mention one quick strategy that you can use, kind of back of the napkin strategy in analyzing a deal, and that is the 1% rule. And the 1% rule simply means that if you are getting rents that are equal or more than 1% of your purchase price, then you will be generally in pretty good shape. Now, there's so many moving parts and nuances and subtleties in the underwriting that could change that. However, that's really my way of taking an initial look at a deal is, what are you getting each unit for? That's what's key. So say you're getting each unit for $80,000, right? And that's what we're looking at right now in Oklahoma City, for instance. And that's kind of class C value add level. And if you're getting $800 or more for that unit, then that deal is typically going to underwrite well and will typically pencil. So that's just a little hint. So again, say you're getting the units for $120,000 a unit. Well, you need to be at 12% or more, ideally, as the property sits right now, to make that a good deal. If your target rents can get to that level, sometimes the deal will pencil and sometimes it won't. But if your in-place rents get to that level, then you're generally in good shape. So that said, you don't want to write offers based on the 1% rule, but it's really what I use to evaluate what deals to underwrite. So it's just kind of a first glance initial look at a deal, and certainly not one to be acted on, but can kind of guide you in the process of getting started with analyzing that deal. Mm-hmm. So Chelsea, I just said a lot. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think that sort of hits the nail on the head. I would say there's often times where in our business models, the 1% rule doesn't always apply. So if you still believe in it's a strong market and there's appreciation and rent growth, you should definitely still underwrite the deal. But as Tate mentioned, it's a good first rule of thumb. And as you become more familiar with your markets and price per door, you're going to know off the bat whether something's just unrealistically high or not.
That's right. And and to Chelsea's point, we do have deals that pencil at less than the 1% rule sometimes, because there's enough of a value add and enough delta in between the existing rents and the target rents. And we can sometimes make those work. But again, this is just a cursory glance at the deal. And it's one that allows you within 30 seconds to get a feel for the deal right off the bat. So what we want to talk to you about today is the importance of really pegging down your target rents and getting a feel for where your in-place rents stand in relation to the market. And this is one of the metrics that will clearly make or break a deal. Sometimes $100 difference in target rents will kill a deal or make a deal. So, for instance, we have a property that we're working on right now that has really, really solid rent comps right across the street at $1,100. But we were able to establish that with a nice remodel, we can get up to $1,200. And we consulted with our property managers on that. We consulted with Rentometer on that, and we'll talk about Rentometer in a minute. But and then we also did some market research. I went and visited one of the comps, one of the properties that is nearby that's very comparable. So the difference between that $1,100 target and the $1,200 target caused us it really put the deal over the top, as far as it was pretty close to not penciling, not being exactly where we needed it to be. And when we established that we could get to 1,200, it really, kind of blossomed as far as the returns go and the metrics there. So, Chelsea, you want to talk a little bit about our process as far as establishing target rents?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, typically there's two things that happen. You're either working on an on-market deal where a broker has put together an offering memorandum, and within that offering memorandum, there are subject, comps, and so that would be step number one. What are those subject comps in relation to your property? And those comps might paint a better picture. Sometimes you have to remember the broker is trying to sell a deal. However, do your research. Look at the comps. Are they comparing apples to apples? Have those units been remodeled? You can call and do your own due diligence. Obviously, you can secret shop these. You can go there in person, but get really clear on those comps to make sure that, are they within a 2 to 5 mile radius? Anything beyond that might not really be a great comp. They might just be showing you as a comp because it makes the property look better. If there are no comps, let's say it's an off-market deal, you can still ask the broker, whoever's brought you the deal, in addition to your own research, what are the comps that they would suggest? And it's kind of a similar process. And what we've been doing is we look up on the website of each comp, what their current rents are, what are the conditions of their units. That's going to be the most accurate pricing. Sometimes we get market research or market studies. So let's say we're pulling a CoStar report. Those can generally be a bit dated. So go to the website, apartment.com, wherever you can find on the internet, to really dig into the comps. What are their amenity spaces? How are their models? Their units remodeled? Are they offering any specials? So this is probably first and foremost the important part of honing in on your comps.
Yeah, and I just wrote down 5 different ways to comp your rents. Chelsea mentioned that a good broker with a good offering memorandum will include rent comps. And as Chelsea mentioned, that may or may not be somewhat biased because the broker is trying to sell the property, and you just need to vet those yourself. One way of doing that is through a website called Rentometer or Rentometer, depending on who you talk to. And rentometer.com is where you would find that. It's a really good, but also, again, cursory look at rents in properties nearby. So again, Chelsea mentioned that, a 2 to 5 mile radius. Ideally, your comps are closer than further away. And Rentometer allows you to look at, say, a 1-bedroom apartment in a certain neighborhood in an apartment building versus a condo, say, and will give you a median rent level for that type of asset in that area. And you can kind of compare what you think or what the broker thinks this stuff will rent for with Rentometer. Again, Rentometer is kind of like Zillow, in my opinion. It's going to be a first glance at value and at rent levels. And So you want to really dig in further than Rentometer, but that's a good place to start. The next one I wrote down is your property manager. Ideally, you're talking to whoever will be managing this property for you. You can also talk to the current property manager and ask them how they feel their market rents are at the moment and whether there might be room for growth. If there's a really high level of occupancy, like 100% or 98%, that generally tells you that the rents are too low, and a healthy occupancy rate is maybe 3 or 4%, or even 5. So basically, you can get a feel from the current property manager what kind of resistance they're getting to higher rents, or if they are getting resistance to higher rents, what they would suggest doing to the property as far as CapEx and improvements to get higher rents. And then you really want to engage the group that's going to be managing it for you moving forward, because they're the ones that are going to be responsible for getting your target rents. So that's a huge, huge piece, is having, you can have a good property manager will get you a budget and will get you basically a pro forma budget of what it's going to look like to run that property. And I can't speak strongly enough about having a great property manager in your market that you're working with, maybe 2 or 3 even, depending on different asset classes you might be in, and really utilizing them in the underwriting process to vet the target rents.
I do want to add to that, Tate, that if you are going to be speaking to a current property manager, it's absolutely imperative that you first and foremost ask the broker or the seller, because oftentimes they may or may not know that the property's for sale. And if you reach out to them directly, that will immediately stir the pot and likely get you disqualified from having an opportunity. It would be very upsetting for somebody to know that the property is not being sold, or is being sold without knowing. So do that first. And again, just emphasizing, having your property management team as your ally. When they put together budgets and they're reviewing your target rents, you have to remember that these people are going to be accountable for what they're saying. And if they're not, then it's going to put them in a bad place, and it's going to put you in a bad place. So oftentimes, work with as many people as you can in the beginning to get a feel for who you like, who you trust. And it's just something that develops over time. Property management is a challenging part of this business. And we've talked about it in episodes past. It is, they're not a needle in a haystack, but the really, really good ones are. And we find that within both of our markets. We're lucky to have good people, but it was not like we just showed up and found them right away. We spent years vetting property managers, and somebody who might be really great and promises you the world, once they get put in place, that's where the real test starts. And I won't go further into that, but I'll sort of leave it there.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I mean, discretion when you're working on a deal is huge. You want to be in really clear communication with your broker, possibly with the seller, especially if you're direct to seller. And what we found is that when we go to tour a property that we're working on or under contract on, often the current property manager is there and knows that we're working on acquiring the property. So that would be when you would have access to kind of picking their brain on what their experience is renting that property out, because obviously they're the ones doing it now, so they're going to understand the dynamics of the tenant base and the availability of the tenant base to absorb rent bumps, rent increases. So,
and one more thing to add, Tate, too, is that when you are shopping comps, make sure you're comparing similar sized units.
Yes.
There's a big difference in pricing if you go from a 600 square foot unit to an 800 square foot unit, like a 2-1, let's say. Make sure if you're comparing a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, it's to another 2-bedroom, 1-bath, not a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, because there will be differences in unit sizes, which will determine your rents. Additionally, layouts. Is it a well laid out community? Meaning, how are the units functioning? These are things that can be easily overlooked, in my opinion. And additionally, I would say, as Tate mentioned, when you're speaking to the property manager on site, what are tenants looking for that are shopping? Are these people looking for 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms? Is it a good school district, 3-bedrooms? Because if you find in a community it's all studios in a place that's more geared towards families, that is going to be that could affect your occupancy and general target rents.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this target rent piece, again, it just can't be overstated how important it is. And we're giving you a plethora of tools to get at accurate target rents here. The next one that I wrote down is have your lender look at it. And some lenders are gonna be really great at something like this. Our lender is, and will take a look at our rent levels. And again, they need to have their heads around the dynamics of this deal as well, so that they can source the best debt for you and can vouch for the deal when they're going to do that. And then the last one I have, which we've touched on, is secret shopping and site visits, right? So you can either call a property, get a hold of the property manager, or stop in to the leasing office is even better. Again, you want to be in the market, right? We've talked about this before. You want to have your boots on the ground in the market as frequently as possible, so that you can do stuff like this. There's no substitute for being on site, watching what tenants do, what kind of cars they drive, checking out the condition of the units, so that you're comparing apples to apples. This is a key piece, and I would recommend doing this probably after you're under LOI at least, because obviously this is time consuming and requires kind of a next level of effort, but you certainly can make a quick phone call to these comps before being under LOI. And, just like Chelsea said, just ask what current rents are, what they include, what kind of amenities they include. Do they include washers and dryers in the unit? That's a huge one right there. What kind of shape they're in, and what they need in the way of a deposit. So that's one way to vet a property. And then the other would be even better, which is to go to the site and tour the property with the property manager. And you can do that. You don't want to be deceitful necessarily, but you can do that without disclosing, why you're there, right? And that's really like the best way to compare apples to apples, is to get in the units, see the condition, see what the rents are for that condition. And then if you're doing a value add, you're typically doing a remodel. So you're ideally touring some remodeled properties that have the higher rent levels, so that what a tenant in that class and that submarket is expecting in the way of finishes, and in the way of just amenities, right? So, Chelsea, what are your thoughts on secret shopping?
Yeah, I think like you said, secret shopping's probably when you get to the point of LOI, because it is time consuming. So calling first and foremost. Another thing, if you get to a point where you're able to take a property tour and speak with the property manager on site, ask them, does this tenant base, how would they feel about updated units at a higher rent? Are they likely to stay? Are they likely to go? This will give you some idea on what your turnaround's going to be. Ultimately, in a lot of situations, when you're repositioning an asset, you're also repositioning the tenant base. So
Right.
incredibly important to take into account that, we'll get into, another part of underwriting on our next episode, but vacancy that comes along with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and to ask too, are there any other charges? Is there pet fee? Is
Right.
there parking? What's other income? A whole nother line item that is associated with the rent costs. And certainly when you call to shop or you're physically shopping, ask if what's included in that rental and what would be additional.
Yeah. Utilities is a big piece too. The tenant is often paying their own electricity because each unit is metered. And if there's gas, they are often paying gas. Often the landlord is paying for the water and sewer. And so you have the capability of doing a RUBS program, which stands for Ratio Utility Billing System, I believe. And what that does is it actually charges the tenant for water usage. And you can basically just put a flat rate line item in there for RUBS. And that, other income in your underwriting is another kind of key metric that can make or break a deal. And there's lots of ways to add to your other income, whether it's RUBS, pet fees, parking fees, any amenities, that cable and internet subscriptions. You can often source a bulk program from the internet provider in the area and sell that back to the tenants. So there's many ways of increasing other income. And like Chelsea said, you want to get a feel for what your remodeled comps are offering, so that you know what you can count on and can underwrite. So so that's our spiel on target rents. And again, I guess just to back up for a sec, you're going to need to figure out the spreadsheet that you're using and get really familiar with that. And target rents will be in that spreadsheet somewhere. We use Michael Blanc's spreadsheet. It's called the syndication deal analyzer. And we have really grown to like that spreadsheet. It does a really good, complete job of getting us all the data that we need. However, there's others out there. And David Tupin has a great one. He's with Real Estate Lab. He's got a really good spreadsheet. And he's got a great web-based acquisitions software that will actually parse your T12s, your rent rolls, and plug it right into your underwriting. So we haven't delved into that yet, but we plan on it. And as you guys know, David and Real Estate Lab actually sponsor the podcast. So shout out to those guys. And so on that, Chelsea, anything to add for the listeners as far as words of wisdom around the basics of underwriting and specifically establishing your target rent level?
Yeah, I would just really emphasize that with underwriting, it is a comprehensive tool that is not learned overnight.
That's right.
Tate and I both were in different mentorship programs that had different tools and worked one-on-one with folks who are very knowledgeable in not only real estate, but of course, underwriting. And having somebody, a mentor on your team to help you go through these items, I think for me, was probably the most important part of mentorship, was learning underwriting. Even if you come from a financial background, which I don't, there are still so many moving parts to this that you wouldn't know unless you're working with somebody who does this on a daily basis. So that would be my parting gift here as we continue to push and just mentorship. It'll pay off in more ways than one.
Yeah, and there's different ways of this will be my final parting thought here. There's different ways of getting mentors and mentorships. Obviously, there's paid programs. Michael Blanc has one. Jake and Gino have, in my opinion, a very good one. And there's others out there. And I would say that one of the ways that you really would want to consider getting a mentor is when you get a deal, take that deal to a mentor that you want to work with, that you can trust in the underwriting process and all the rest of the processes, to really guide you and guide the deal. And, give them a piece of the GP just for being on the GP to advise. And this is how we started our relationship with our KP, our key principal, that we've done 5 or 6 deals with since. Is we just went to him and said, hey, we've got this deal. We'd love you to be an advisor on the deal, and we'll offer you X% of the ownership of the deal. And it's a real win-win. And it's a way of establishing that long-term, long-game relationship that you need to have with a KP, because you're going to need a KP on every deal. So if you're a beginner, I would say, we've talked about this before, don't be greedy on your first deal. It's not so much about getting as much as you can for your part. It's more about just getting great partners and getting the deal done. So on that, we'll just remind you that you can find us at investwithgreenlight.com. We have our current offerings up there at this moment, and you can see what we're up to. You can also book a call with me personally, no strings attached consulting call, just to brainstorm your business, talk about where you are and what you need, and talk about like next steps to get you where you want to go. So again, www.investwithgreenlight.com. And we love to hear from you. And we hear from lots of listeners, throughout the weeks responding to this offer. So someday, probably pretty soon, I'm going to charge a lot of money for coaching, and it's going to be worth every penny. It's going to be worth more than what I charge, because you're going to get deals done as a result of it. But for now, I'm just offering, again, no strings attached, consultations, and I love those meetings. Like, we have a really good time talking about possibilities and talking about how to get you going in the right direction. So on that note, thank you so much for listening. And if you like what you heard, we love when we get ratings and reviews from our listeners. You can do that at Apple Podcast. And if you're listening to the end of these and really absorbing the content, taking notes, maybe, like, you're doing good stuff. And while you need to be taking other action steps, like calling brokers, calling investors, et cetera, this piece is huge. And this is a digital mentorship, really. If you think about it, you just got to spend a half hour or so with Chelsea and me, and with us mentoring you pretty directly. So good job. Give yourself a pat on the back, and come back and listen to the next one, and we'll cover other aspects of underwriting, and we'll make sure that you have as much specialized knowledge on this subject so you can really go out there and get good deals done. So Chelsea, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Tate. Thanks to everybody who continues to listen, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yep. Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to The Apartment Guys with Tate Seamer. Tate and friends are grateful to have you as a loyal listener. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, rate, review, and share with friends on your Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Also, check out Tate's YouTube channel for videos of many of these episodes and more. Until next time, take massive action steps and rock on.